Welcome to the Deconstructionist Deep Dive.
The podcast that doesn't just accept the story.
We break it
We examine the pieces.
and expose the machinery inside.
Let's dive in.
What if everything about the claim that clinical depression isn't real, isn't just wrong, but is designed to be wrong? Okay, let's unpack this immediately.
We have to.
Because the internet it is just drowning in a very specific, very aggressive narrative right now.
Oh, it's everywhere.
You've seen it. You've definitely heard it repeated by, young men in gyms, in Discord servers, on Twitter. It's everywhere.
Right.
It's the narrative popularized by figures like Andrew Tate, though. He certainly didn't invent it. It's the claim that depression isn't real.
Right. And the argument usually goes something like this, doesn't it? It's you aren't depressed. You're just lazy.
Exactly.
You're just sad because your life isn't where it should be. It's a mindset issue.
It's a character flaw.
A lack of discipline. And if you just, did some push-ups and made $1 million, the depression would magically vanish.
Poof. Gone.
It frames mental illness not as a pathology, but as a moral failing.
It's a moral feeling.
Yeah.
Exactly. And today, we're taking a sledgehammer to that entire idea.
Mm-hmm.
But we aren't doing it with feelings. We're not doing it with anecdotes. We're doing it with the help of our source material, specifically the breakdown from Dr. Mike Israetel.
Okay.
Now, for those who don't know, Dr. Mike is a PhD in sport physiology. He is a massive bodybuilder, a professor, a guy who just understands human biology at a really granular level.
Yeah, he's the real deal.
And his take on this whole depression is fake narrative. He calls it nonsense. He calls it wrong with a capital W.
And what's so fascinating about that, is that Dr. Mike represents the very demographic that this Tate narrative usually targets.
100%.
He's hypermasculine, gym-focused, discipline-oriented, and yet he's the one looking at the denial of depression and essentially saying, you do not understand basic biology.
That is the conflict point right there. On one side, you have the manosphere influencers selling a story that you have 100% control over your brain chemistry through sheer will.
Just think harder.
Just think harder. And on the other side, you have the hard sciences, physiology, neurochemistry, genetics saying, no, there is machinery here that can break.
But before we even get to the biology, we have to ask the question. We have to ask, why does the depression is fake narrative work?
Right. Why is it so sticky?
Why is it so viral? It's not just because people are, mean or dismissive. It's because it sells something incredibly seductive.
And what's that?
Total control.
Go on.
Well, think about it. If I tell you that you have, say, a genetic predisposition to a neurochemical imbalance, that's kind of disempowering in a way, isn't it?
It takes agency away from you.
It means there's a part of your destiny you can't control. It implies, vulnerability. But if I tell you, hey, you're just sad because you're a loser, and if you work hard, you won't be sad anymore, that is actually a really perverse form of empowerment.
How so?
It tells the listener that if they are suffering, it is purely their fault. And if it's their fault, then they can fix it.
Turn suffering into a logic puzzle. A simple one.
Exactly.
I feel bad because I am bad. Therefore, if I become good, I will feel good. It's so neat. It's clean.
It's a clean story.
And it is biologically demonstrably false. It relies on what? The just world hypothesis.
That's it. The idea that people get what they deserve. So if you feel like garbage, well, you must deserve to feel like garbage.
It's a toxic optimism wrapped in a pretty nasty insult.
It is. It removes the randomness of biology and replaces it with the certainty of ego.
So let's do it. Let's strip away the philosophy. Let's look at the hard data.
Okay.
Because this is where the mindset-only argument just completely disintegrates. We need to look at what Dr. Israetel and the actual medical consensus, the WHO, the APA, the NIH, what they actually say depression is.
And it's not a mood.
It is not a mood. It's a physiological state.
We're talking about neurochemistry, but let's go deeper than just, listing off names of chemicals. Let's talk about the mechanism.
Right. Let's stop looking at the philosophy for a second and look at the plumbing. Because when Dr. Israetel talks about this, he isn't talking about sadness. He's talking about a mechanical failure.
A failure in the transmission of reality, almost.
That's a great way to put it. We're talking about that holy trinity of regulation: serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine.
The big three.
But I want to be really specific here because the depression is fake.
Yeah.
Crowd loves to simplify this down to happy chemicals.
Right. As if they're just little smiley faces floating around in your brain.
Yeah. They think dopamine is just the fun molecule. It's not. It is the motivation molecule. It's the chemical that bridges the gap between I see that glass of water and I have the energy to pick it up.
And in a clinically depressed brain, that bridge is out.
The bridge is out. Exactly. It's not that you don't want the water. It's that the signal gets lost in the synaptic cleft.
So the command is sent, but it never arrives.
Imagine you're shouting instructions to a construction crew, but the radio line is just dead. You can shout all day. That's your willpower. But the crew, your muscles, your drive, they never get the order.
It's a signaling error. And what about serotonin? That's the regulator, right?
Serotonin regulates mood stability, sleep, digestion, all of it. When that crashes, you don't just feel sad. You feel destabilized.
I'm grounded.
The world feels chaotic and threatening because the chemical filter that usually says everything is okay has just been ripped out.
And norepinephrine.
That's your mobilization energy, your get up and go.
Cool.
When that is low, you get what's called psychomotor retardation. You literally move slower.
It's not in your head.
No, you speak slower. Your thoughts are slower. That isn't laziness. That is an engine that is running on fumes.
And this is where, the whole SSRI conversation usually comes in, right? The selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor.
Yes. And the mechanism is so key to debunking this whole it's fake narrative. Your brain naturally recycles these chemicals. It sucks them back up after using them.
Right.
That's reuptake. In a depressed brain, the vacuum cleaner is on overdrive. It's sucking up the serotonin before it can finish its job.
So the message can't be read.
The medication isn't happy pills. It's essentially jamming a stick in the vacuum cleaner so the serotonin stays in the gap longer. It is a mechanical fix for a mechanical problem.
And it's not just the chemicals floating around, is it? It's the actual structure of the machine itself.
Correct. We have neuroimaging evidence. We have scans that show brain circuitry alterations. We can see inflammation markers in the blood. Depression has a physical footprint in the body.
You can see it.
You can see it. If you scan the brain of a severely depressed person, you often see shrinkage in the hippocampus, the area for memory and emotion.
Wow.
You see reduced activity in the prefrontal cortex, part for planning and executive function. You cannot mindset away hippocampal atrophy
right.
any more than you can mindset away a broken femur.
And then on top of all that, you have the genetic component.
This is the nail in the coffin. It has to be. The data shows a 30 to 40% genetic heritability factor for major depression.
That's a huge number.
It's massive. And it mirrors the heritability of so many purely physical traits. You inherit a susceptibility to it, just like you might inherit a susceptibility to type 1 diabetes or heart disease.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, implying that someone can just think their way out of clinical depression, it's just biologically illiterate.
It's worse than illiterate.
It ignores the hardware.
It's malpractice. If someone came to you with a thyroid disorder and you screamed at them to just be more disciplined until their hormones balanced out, you'd be laughed out of the room.
Of course.
But because the organ in question is the brain, we allow this kind of magical thinking. So the verdict here is clear. Clinical depression is a validated medical disorder. It is not a philosophy. It is not a loser mindset. It is a malfunction of the machinery.
However, and here's where it gets really interesting, there is a gray area. And I think this gray area is where the depression is fake crowd gets all their ammunition.
Right.
There is this massive confusion between clinical depression and what Dr. Israetel calls situational low mood.
Okay, let's distinguish these because they can feel similar, but they are completely different animals.
Situational low mood is an evolutionary response. Think about our ancestors. If you experienced a hierarchical setback, you lost a fight, you were ostracized by the tribe, you lost your resources, your brain would induce a state of low energy.
Why?
To keep you safe, to stop you from challenging the alpha again immediately and, getting killed. It's a withdrawal mechanism.
Dr. Mike calls this the dominance loss response. It's the social defeat hypothesis.
Exactly.
When a mammal loses a dominance struggle, it enters a state of involuntary submission. It slouches, it avoids eye contact, it loses its appetite.
And there's a good reason for that.
In the wild, if you lose a fight and then immediately puff your chest out and try again, the alpha will kill you. So your brain pumps the brakes to force you to stay in the cave, heal up, and stay out of trouble.
So feeling like absolute garbage when your life is falling apart is actually functional.
In an evolutionary sense, yes. If you have no job, no friends, no purpose, and you're eating trash food all day, you should feel bad.
It's a signal.
That is your brain signaling that your environment is toxic. It's an alarm system. Alert You are at the bottom of the hierarchy. Change something or we will die.
And this is where the Tate narrative accidentally gets something right, but then it applies it to completely the wrong people.
Explain that.
Well, if you are experiencing situational low mood because your life is in chaos, then yes, the solution is action. The solution is discipline.
You put out the fire, the alarm stops ringing.
Exactly. But here's the paradox that Dr. Mike brings up, the high achiever paradox. And this is the logical bomb that just destroys the idea that all depression is situational.
The rock stars.
Yeah.
The elite athletes.
The people who have won the game.
Right. We have endless tragic examples of people who have maximum status. They have money, fame, adoration. They have wins on the board. They are at the top of the hierarchy.
So by the situational logic,
They should never be depressed.
yeah,
They have no reason to be. And yet,
we see massive rates of depression, suicide, and substance abuse in high achievers.
it's simple logic. If depression was just a result of being a loser, then winners wouldn't get depressed, period.
But let me play devil's advocate here for a second.
Please?
The internet argument isn't just about winning in a monetary sense. The argument is that these high achievers, the rock stars, the athletes, they might have the money, but they lack purpose.
The ennui of the conqueror.
Right. They've reached the mountaintop and now there's nothing left to conquer. So isn't that still a mindset issue? Isn't that still situational because they're just bored?
That's a valid pushback. It really is.
Yeah.
But here is where the biology just stomps all over that theory.
Yeah.
Because we can look at their cortisol levels. We can look at their inflammation markers. If it were just boredom, we wouldn't see the physiological deterioration that's associated with major depressive disorder.
It would just be a feeling.
We are seeing people with the world at their feet who are chemically unable to feel the ground. It's not that they're bored. It's that their entire reward system has been scorched to the earth.
So the Tate logic assumes the machine works, but it just has no fuel. You're saying the fuel is there, the success, the money, but the engine block itself is cracked.
Precisely. Imagine working for 10 years to win a gold medal. You sacrifice everything. You're standing on the podium, the national anthem is playing, and you feel nothing.
The void.
Or worse, you feel a crushing gray emptiness. That is not a mindset issue. You didn't have the wrong mindset while you were winning a literal gold medal. You have a biological inability to process the reward.
And that's why the just work harder advice is so poisonous for clinical cases.
It is.
Yeah.
It tells them to just dial the number harder when the phone itself is broken.
So we need a way to tell the difference. We need a differentiation framework. How do you know which one you're dealing with?
You have to look at the triggers and you have to look at the interventions. Situational low mood is triggered by a lack of purpose, poor habits, social defeat. It is solved generally via lifestyle adjustments, habits, exercise.
Action.
Clinical depression is persistent despite success. It is the shadow that doesn't go away when the sun comes out.
And the intervention for clinical depression requires a much heavier toolkit.
It requires the medical consensus,
Yep.
medication and psychotherapy. The APA guidelines are crystal clear on the efficacy of antidepressants combined with therapy. You have to treat the biology and the psychology.
But, and this is a crucial synthesis, Dr. Mike acknowledges that these things can coexist.
Right.
You can have clinical depression and be in a situational crisis at the same time.
You can be genetically predisposed to depression and also be unemployed and eating junk food. In that case, you have two problems. You need to treat the chemical imbalance, but you also need to fix your life.
And that brings us to the how.
Yes.
Because even if the depression is fake, crowd is dead wrong about the cause, we have to examine if they are, maybe, partially right about part of the solution.
This brings us to the mechanics of purpose
Yeah.
and what's called behavioral activation.
Okay.
Let's transition from the biological reality to the practical solution.
Mhm.
Because Dr. Mike is a physiologist, but he's also a coach. He deals with people who are listless, people who have absolutely zero motivation.
And this is where we have to completely flip the script on how most people view motivation. And most people think, I need to feel motivated before I take action.
I'll clean my room when I feel like cleaning my room.
Exactly. And that is a lie. It's a trap. Dr. Mike makes it very clear. Motivation does not precede action. Action precedes motivation.
It's the action first principle.
When you are in a state of depression or deep situational low mood, your brain is not going to send you a let's go signal. It's not coming.
Yeah.
You have to mechanically force the body to move, and then the brain follows.
He talks about microactions. And I love this because it's so tactical, it's so achievable.
It's not some grand theory.
No, you don't start by saying, I'm going to build $1 billion empire today. You start with, I'm going to pick up that one sock off the floor.
It sounds so trivial, but it's actually neurological, isn't it?
Completely. When you complete a task, even a tiny one like organizing your desk, you get a micro hit of dopamine. You register a win. You prove to yourself that you have agency over your physical environment.
And it's the accumulation of those little wins that builds momentum.
You stack a clean room on top of a made bed, on top of a shower. Suddenly, you aren't just a passive observer of your own decay. You are an active agent.
And then you can escalate. You can move from these micro goals to macro goals: career, charity, family. Dr. Israetel uses a really powerful personal example here about his work with homelessness initiatives.
Yeah, that was impactful. He
Yeah.
talks about using a massive external purpose, helping the homeless to catalyze his own internal momentum. When you are focused on a problem bigger than your own sadness, it forces you to function. It pulls you out of your own head.
And that connects to self-determination theory. We need three things to feel psychologically stable: competence, autonomy, and relatedness.
Right.
Cleaning your room builds competence. Choosing to help others builds autonomy and relatedness. It checks all the boxes.
But, and I have to be the skeptic here for a second, we have to be realistic about the timeline. The internet loves to sell the instant fix. Watch this video, change your mindset, boom, you're cured in a weekend.
And the science says something very, very different.
We have to talk about the Lally study from 2010. Everyone quotes that 21 days to form a habit rule. You see it on every self-help Instagram reel.
It's gospel.
And Lally basically proved that it is a complete myth.
A total myth. The study looked at, 96 people over a 12-week period. They were trying to form simple health habits.
Simple things like drinking a bottle of water with lunch, running for 15 minutes.
And the variance in how long it took for those actions to become automatic was massive.
It ranged from 18 days
Yeah.
to 254 days.
It's up there. 254 days. That's nearly a whole year.
Imagine being that person on day 200. You have been doing the thing, forcing yourself to go to the gym for over 6 months, and it still feels like a chore. It still requires active willpower.
That is where the depression is fake narrative becomes so dangerous. Because that person on day 200 thinks, I'm failing, I'm doing the push-ups, but I'm not cured, I'm not a beast yet.
Exactly. They think they are broken, but the data says they're just on the far end of the bell curve. The deep dive takeaway here is that consistency isn't about how you feel about the action, it's about the timeline. If you go in expecting a 21-day training montage, you will quit on day 22. You need to sign a contract for 300 days.
That is a staggering reality check, but it's also really liberating too.
How so?
It means the struggle isn't a sign of failure, it's just the math.
It's just the math.
So we have the biology and we have the behavioral action, but there's this emotional component to the whole narrative that we need to deconstruct. This idea of stoicism.
Ah, yes. Internet stoicism.
The version of stoicism that says, men shouldn't feel things, push it down, ignore it, be a stone.
Which is, ironically, the absolute opposite of actual Stoic philosophy. Marcus Aurelius wasn't a robot. He was a man constantly wrestling with his emotions in his journals. But the internet version is just about repression.
And Dr. Mike attacks this idea of emotional repression heavily. He has a very nuanced view on masculinity here. He completely rejects the denial of vulnerability.
He treats vulnerability as a strategic asset, not a weakness.
Exactly. He talks about the burnout reality. Here's a guy who pushes his body to the absolute limit. He talks about post-bodybuilding burnout, the morning sadness. Even the strongest, most disciplined individuals experience these chemical lows.
And his strategy isn't to pretend they aren't happening.
No.
It isn't to say, I'm a beta male for feeling sad.
No. The strategy is acknowledge the low. Okay, I feel terrible today. Don't deny it. But then, and this is the key counter, via consistent action. You feel the sadness, you acknowledge the sadness, and then you go train anyway.
It's distinct from wallowing, but it's also distinct from denial.
It's management.
It's saying, my machinery is running slow today, but I am still going to operate the machine.
And that is true resilience. Resilience isn't not feeling pain. Resilience is functioning despite the pain. It's the ability to hold two opposing thoughts in your head. I am devastated, and I am going to squat.
We've talked about the software, the mind, the habits, the vulnerability. But Dr. Mike is a physiologist. He looks at the human being as an animal. And an animal resides in a chassis.
This is the pivot point, because usually when people talk about mental health, they treat the head like it's just floating in a jar, completely detached from the neck down.
But the data suggests that the condition of the chassis dictates the performance of the engine inside.
This brings us to the physical armor. Resistance training for longevity.
And I want to be very, very clear here. We are not talking about getting shredded for Instagram. We aren't talking about vanity. We are talking about signals.
Chemical signals.
Every time you contract a muscle under load, you are sending a chemical email to your brain.
And what does that email say?
It says, we are under threat. We are struggling. We need to stay alive. And the brain responds by upregulating the very neurochemistry that depression shuts down.
The data on the connection between muscle mass and mortality is just, it's staggering.
It really is. We're looking at studies that find muscle mass is inversely associated with death risk. Put simply, the more muscle you have, the harder you are to kill.
Let's unpack the term sarcopenia, because Dr. Mike brings it up and it sounds like some kind of rare bone disease, but it's actually the silent killer waiting for almost everyone.
It literally translates to poverty of flesh.
Which is terrifyingly poetic.
It is the age-related loss of muscle tissue. From age 30 onwards, if you aren't actively fighting it, your body begins to basically liquefy your muscle for energy. It deems it expensive tissue that it doesn't need to maintain.
It's just an efficiency protocol. The body says, you sit at a desk all day. Why am I paying the calorie rent for these glutes? Let's get rid of them.
And when you lose that muscle, you lose your glucose disposal sink. Your blood sugar goes up. Your insulin sensitivity goes down. You get weaker. You get frail. And fragility is the precursor to mortality.
So when Dr. Mike says hypertrophy, which is just the fancy word for growing muscle cells, he isn't talking about bodybuilding.
Not at all. He's talking about organ maintenance. Muscle is the organ of longevity.
So what is the protocol? If we want to build this armor for our mental and physical health, what do we actually do? Dr. Mike simplifies it into these essential movement categories.
Right. We aren't doing random exercises here. We are doing movements that matter. Let's break them down.
First up, deep squats or knee bends.
So goblet squats, lunges, barbell squats. Why do we do
Yeah.
them? Wolf's Law, bone density.
Explain Wolf's Law.
Wolf's Law states that your bones will adapt to the loads under which they are placed. When you put a heavy bar on your back and squat, your femur actually bends slightly, microbending. Your body senses this stress and says, whoa, we need to reinforce the structure.
Yeah.
So it deposits more calcium. It builds a denser bone matrix. The data shows progressive loading increases femoral neck bone mineral density by 1 to 3%.
You're practically bulletproofing your hips against breaking when you get old.
You are. And there's the systemic stress factor. A leg extension is an isolation movement. It stresses the quad, fine. But a deep squat, that stresses the entire system.
The whole body.
Your nervous system has to coordinate balance, core stability, depth perception, massive force production all at the same time. It demands more from the central nervous system. It screams at the body to adapt.
And that scream, that systemic stress signal, is what triggers the potent hormonal cascade.
Testosterone, growth hormone, IGF-1. These are powerful anti-aging and mood-regulating hormones. You do not get that same flood from sitting on a machine playing on your phone.
Okay, next category, the hip hinge or deadlift.
Romanian deadlifts, good mornings, kettlebell swings. This targets the posterior chain, the glutes, the hamstrings, the lower back. This is your spinal stability. This is what keeps you upright and prevents you from becoming frail.
I always think of this as the independence movement.
It is. Can you pick up your groceries? That's a deadlift. Can you pick up your grandchild? That's a deadlift. If your posterior chain is weak, your back goes out.
And if your back goes out, you stop moving.
You stop moving, you die. It connects directly to mental health because that loss of physical autonomy is a massive trigger for depression in older adults. You build the deadlift now so you don't feel helpless later.
Then we have the upper body push.
Bench press, overhead press, push-ups. It's not just for looking good in a t-shirt. It triggers a massive hormonal response. It improves metabolic health via something called GLUT4 upregulation.
Okay, break that down for us. GLUT4.
GLUT4 is a transporter protein. Think of it as a little door on your muscle cells that opens up to let sugar, glucose, in. When you do heavy pressing movements, you increase the number and efficiency of these doors. This means when you eat a carb, instead of that sugar floating around in your blood causing inflammation and diabetes, it gets sucked into the muscle to be used as fuel.
You become a more efficient machine.
A much more efficient machine. And finally, the upper body pull.
Rows, pull-ups, chin-ups.
This is posture correction. In a world where we are all hunched over our phones, pulling movements pull us back into alignment. They prevent injury.
I love the point he makes about the Cobra Lat effect and the psychology of posture.
Yeah. Think about the literal body language of depression. Slumped shoulders, head down, caved-in chest.
It's a protective fetal posture.
And the upper body pull, the rows, the chin-ups. It forces the chest open. It pulls the shoulders back. It physically exposes the heart.
There's a feedback loop there, isn't there?
There has to be. If you force your body into a proud posture, chest up, shoulders back, it actually signals confidence back to the brain. It is very hard to feel meek when your posterior chain is lit up and your posture is dominant.
So we're essentially hacking the fake it till you make it software by changing the hardware first.
Exactly. But we have to bust some myths here. Because if people start training, they often fall for the same kind of internet nonsense as the depression is fake stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Dr. Mike takes a moment to destroy some of these. First one, spot reduction.
The idea that if I do 1,000 sit-ups, I will lose belly fat.
Which is biologically impossible.
Totally impossible. Major medical journals confirm this. Fat loss is systemic. You lose fat from everywhere. You cannot pick and choose where it comes off. Stop doing 1,000 crunches thinking it will give you a six-pack if you're still eating too much.
You know, it's interesting how spot reduction is the belief that you can target a specific negative area, like belly fat, and fix it with a specific localized action, like crunches, without changing the whole system.
Which parallels the depression is fake narrative perfectly.
Exactly. They believe you can target a specific negative feeling, sadness, and fix it with a specific localized thought, stop being a loser, without addressing the whole system.
The genetics, the inflammation, the environment.
Both are just radical oversimplifications of complex biological systems. They appeal to us because we want a sniper rifle solution, one shot, one kill. But biology works more like an ecosystem. You have to treat the soil, the water, the air.
Well said. And the second myth, the senior program.
Ah, yes. The idea that once you hit a certain age, you should just do light, easy movements.
This drives Dr. Mike crazy, and it should. He critiques these low-effort programs. Older adults need progressive overload more than 20-year-olds do.
Not less.
If you just wave pink dumbbells around, you're not stimulating adaptation. You need to struggle, safely, of course, but you need to struggle. The body only keeps muscle if it thinks it needs it.
We treat the elderly, and the depressed for that matter, as if they're made of glass. Oh, don't push too hard, just take it easy, rest.
And Dr. Mike is saying, no, the fragility is why you need to push. If you treat a fragile organism with zero stress, it atrophies, it gets weaker. If you want to make glass stronger, well, you can't. But the human body isn't glass. It's anti-fragile. It gets stronger when you stress it.
So the advice for the grandmother lifting the pink dumbbell is actually hastening her decline. She needs to be lifting the 20-pound dumbbells, struggling for 8 reps.
She needs to be near failure. The data is clear. Hypertrophy and bone density adaptations only occur when the mechanical tension is high enough to signal a threat to the tissue. The body is efficient. It will not build expensive muscle tissue unless it believes its survival depends on it.
And applying this to the mind, if we coddle our mental state, if we avoid all triggers, if we retreat into a safe space where nothing ever challenges us, do we atrophy?
I believe so. And Dr. Mike would agree. Resilience is built through exposure. This is the very basis of exposure therapy. You don't get over fear of heights by never going up high. You go up a little bit, you survive, and your brain learns, oh, I didn't die. You adapt.
So if we pull all of this together, the biology of depression, the psychology of action, the physiology of armor, we arrive at a final synthesis, a nuanced masculinity.
Let's revisit the enemy, the Andrew Tate manosphere narrative that depression is fake. Why is it so dangerous? It isn't just annoying, it delays treatment.
If you convince a kid that his clinical depression is just laziness, he won't seek therapy, he won't take medication that could literally save his life, he will just punish himself for failing, which makes the depression worse. It promotes so much shame.
However, we also have to apply our skeptical lens to our own source. What is the limitation of Dr. Israetel's approach?
Well, you know, Dr. Mike is a high performer. His approach is heavily action-oriented. Do the micro-action, go to the gym. For someone in the deepest pits of catatonic depression, even cleaning a room might feel impossible.
It's too big a step.
There is a risk that his advice overemphasizes action for the most severe cases. It's also very male-centric and Western-focused. It assumes a certain level of baseline function that some people simply don't have yet.
That's a fair critique. But the future of mental health seems to lie in that integration. It's not meds versus gym, it's meds and gym.
The projected data suggests a 20 to 30% efficacy boost when you combine behavioral activation with pharmacotherapy.
And that is the nuanced masculinity we're aiming for. Vulnerability plus action. You admit you are hurt, you take the meds if you need them, and then you get under the bar and squat.
One final critique of the source material before we wrap up. Dr. Mike talks about testosterone optimization briefly. sleep, nutrition. He dismisses NoFap.
Yeah, he takes a quick shot at the no-fap movement. Meta-reviews show minimal, if any, impact on actual testosterone levels. Again, it's a control narrative. If I just control this one urge, I will become a god.
And biology says.
Biology says, no, you'll just be horny.
But sleep?
Sleep is the kingmaker. If you're sleeping 5 hours a night, your testosterone is that of someone 10 years older. Your cortisol is through the roof. Your insulin sensitivity is trash. If you want to cure a situational mood disorder, fix your sleep before you try to fix your philosophy.
It's the boring answers that actually work. Sleep 8 hours, lift heavy things, eat protein, talk to a therapist.
And that is exactly why the depression is fake narrative wins online, because sleep and lift is boring. The Matrix is trying to suppress you, and only you can break out by buying my course is exciting.
It's a much better story.
It's a better movie.
Yeah.
But we don't live in a movie. We live in biology, and biology rewards consistency, not drama.
So, to our listener, you have the data, you have the deconstruction. The Matrix isn't suppressing you with depression. Your neurotransmitters might be misfiring, or your life might be out of alignment. Both are solvable. Neither is a moral failing.
And neither is a quick fix. It is a campaign of war against entropy.
And you have the weapons.
The squat, the hinge, the push, the pull, the action,
The willingness to be vulnerable.
and the skepticism to reject the easy lies.
We really have covered a lot of ground here today, from the synaptic cleft all the way to the squat rack.
It's all one system. That's the takeaway. You cannot separate the mind from the body. They're the same machine.
And Dr. Israetel, for all his bodybuilding intensity, is ultimately preaching a message of integration. Be strong, but be smart. Be disciplined, but be kind to yourself when the machinery breaks.
Because it will break. That is the nature of the machine. It's what you do in the repair shop that truly matters.
Well said.
I think we have sufficiently dismantled the dogma for one day.
I think we have.
Remember, the sources are in the show notes. Check the WHO data, read the Lally study. Don't take our word for it.
Always check the receipts.
Always.
And that's our deep dive for this week.
Remember, the most dangerous illusion is the one you don't know you're in.
But now you know. So here's our question for you. Knowing the scientific reality of depression we've deconstructed, what's one small act you can take this week to challenge a misleading belief about your own mental health and build real purpose?
Let us know in the comments. Question the narrative. Deconstruct the dogma. See the system.
We'll see you next time. Stay skeptical. Thank you for joining us.